Welcome to Natural Habitat Adventures Daily Dose of Nature. Today's presentation, Collaborating with Communities to Protect Madagascar's Lemurs and Landscapes, is brought to you by conservation biologist and recent Nat Hab Philanthropy Grantee Timothy M. Eppley, Ph.D. of Wildlife Madagascar. Timothy, we are really excited to have you today. We appreciate you taking the time to come out and present for us. So the show is yours, my friend. Take it away.
Thank you for inviting me to speak with you today. I'm excited to share a bit about Wildlife Madagascar and the work we're doing on the ground and how we collaborate with local communities to conserve Madagascar's extraordinary biodiversity. My name is Tim Eppley. I serve as the Chief Conservation Officer for Wildlife Madagascar. I'm originally from Michigan and spent a lot of time outdoors. That love of nature eventually led me to Madagascar, where I've been working on and off for nearly 20 years. I conducted both my master's and my PhD work on the behavioral ecology of bamboo lemurs living in a swamp forest, and later served San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance as their leading their lemur conservation program. I've also worked with other primates around the world, including bonobos in the Democratic Republic of Congo, but Madagascar has really become home for my conservation work. Madagascar is the fourth largest island in the world, located off the southeast coast of mainland Africa. To give you an idea of its size, Madagascar is about 45% larger than the state of California. Being an island is what has made Madagascar so special. It's separated from other land masses about 88 million years ago, and that long tectonic isolation allowed plants and animals to evolve in remarkable ways found nowhere else on Earth. Now, when many people imagine Madagascar, they picture landscapes like this: baobabs rising from dry forests, similar to what you might see in parts of East Africa. But Madagascar is far more diverse than that. Botanically, Madagascar contains more than 14,000 plant species spread across a range of ecosystems, from eastern rainforests to dry, deciduous forests in the west and spiny deserts in the south. And perhaps most astonishing is that around 90% of these plant species occur nowhere else on Earth. The same pattern holds true for wildlife. More than 90% of Madagascar's animals are endemic, meaning they are found nowhere else. Because of this extraordinary concentration of unique life, Madagascar is considered one of the world's most important biodiversity hotspots and is sometimes even called the eighth continent. To emphasize just how remarkable that diversity is, Madagascar has 3 times more endemic families of plants and vertebrates than the next most diverse regions on Earth. One of my favorite examples of this diversity is the chameleons. Madagascar contains over half the world's chameleon species, and you can find them almost everywhere, even in trees around the cities. Many visitors come to Madagascar expecting to fall in love with lemurs, which I'll get to in a second, but quite a few leave completely fascinated by chameleons. Now, of course, Madagascar's most famous residents are the lemurs. When people hear the word lemur, they often think of this species, right? These are the ring-tailed lemurs, and you've probably seen them many times in zoos. They're great, but they represent just a small part of the story. Today, we recognize 112 species of lemurs, all of which live only on Madagascar. Unfortunately, 95% of lemur species are currently threatened with extinction, meaning they fall into one of the IUCN Red List categories of critically endangered, endangered, or vulnerable. In fact, these numbers, that 95% of 112 species, makes them the most endangered group of mammals on Earth. So just to quickly introduce you to the 5 lemur families, first we have Caragalidae. These are the small nocturnal lemurs. There are 41 species and include the Madame Bertha's mouse lemur, which at 30 grams is the world's smallest primate. Also, this group includes dwarf lemurs, like the one on the bottom right, and they are the only primate known to hibernate. And they do that to cope with Madagascar's harsh seasonal climate. Next, we have the Lepidlemuridae. These are the sportive lemurs, which are medium-sized nocturnal primates that never actually seem to be asleep. They're always peeking out of their tree holes and watching you. Until recently, scientists had only thought there were 9 species, but several massive genetic studies have revealed that 17 new species since 2006, giving us a total of 26 species around the island. And there's probably many more yet to be discovered. Perhaps the most famous and well-known lemur family is the Lemuridae, or true lemurs. And this includes the ring-tailed lemurs, brown lemurs, and ruffed lemurs, all of which you may have seen in zoos. They are incredibly diverse in their ecology and social organization, ranging from strict folivores to frugivores, from living in small family units to fission-fusion communities. Next, we have the Indridae, which include Madagascar's largest living lemur, the indri, on the right there. This family contains perhaps the most charismatic lemur species, which have exceptionally long legs that allow them to leap very large distances between trees. Most visitors to Madagascar make it a point to go and see or go and observe indri in the wild, as there are none in captivity. The same is true for many of the sifakas species, which is the one in the bottom center there. And then the last family is probably the cutest of all. I think you'd all agree. This is a singular species. It's the ii. You've probably heard of them. They've become quite popular over the last couple of decades as people are becoming more enamored with rare and unusual species. They have these ever-growing incisors and have a long digit that they use for tympanic foraging. And so they'll tap along tree stems in search of larvae, which they then extract by chewing the bark off and scooping the larva out. In a way, they fill the ecological niche of woodpeckers, which do not exist in Madagascar. So when we think about all of this incredible biodiversity, we tend to imagine vast forests stretching across the island, right? But the reality is quite different. Madagascar has experienced extensive deforestation, often driven by slash and burn agriculture. Over time, repeated clearing degrades these landscapes and accelerates soil erosion, which leads to common scenes like this of a completely degraded landscape where nothing but grasses and rock appear to exist. The forest loss is so bad that Madagascar has less than 10% of its original vegetation remaining. And the loss has been exponential over the last 70 years, to the point that 80% of all forest in Madagascar occurs within a single kilometer of edge, meaning that there are very few large forests remaining. So what's driving this? A major factor is human population pressure combined with widespread poverty. Madagascar currently has about 32 million people, and that number is projected to double by 2050. More than 90% of people live on less than $2.15 a day. Over half the population is under 18, and many families depend directly on forest resources for survival. As the late primatologist Alison Jolly once said, conservation in Madagascar is often a tragedy without villains. So faced with these challenges, we realized that conservation in Madagascar requires a different approach. And that's why Wildlife Madagascar was founded. Wildlife Madagascar's work rests on 3 mutually reinforcing pillars: conservation research and biodiversity protection, sustainable development and improved agriculture, and responsible ecotourism. These pillars do not operate in isolation. They form a single integrated program that addresses both environmental and community needs. Unlike many NGOs in Madagascar, which focus only on one of these areas or maybe 2 of these areas, we combine all 3 to create lasting impact. And before I get too far, one thing we are especially proud of is that all of our field teams are Malagasy. We work with local scientists, graduate students, and community members who serve as guides, technicians, forest rangers, and educators. At the same time, we host international researchers and students who contribute to our work while gaining hands-on field experience. Thanks to our incredible board, 100% of donations and other money we bring in goes to our operations in Madagascar and is spent on the ground. Currently, Wildlife Madagascar operates across 4 primary landscapes. We have Anzanharebe Sud Special Reserve in the northeast, La Mananara Forest in the Central Highlands, Singi de Nimaruka National Park in the northwest, and more recently, we've begun work in the Mandrari and Gabu landscape in the south. So first, we're going to go over Anzanharebe Sud Special Reserve. So this site, which we refer to as ASSR for short, because Anzanharebe Sud is a mouthful, is a mountainous rainforest in the Sava region. This region produces the bulk of the world's annual supply of vanilla. You can even smell it while walking in remote stretches of this largely pristine forest. It's quite rare to have such expansive views of forested mountains for as far as you can see, but this is what ASSR offers. The major issue affecting this protected area is the illegal artisanal mining, largely focused on various crystals like amethyst. And without intervention, miners will create large-scale camps in the forest interior and decimate the land, similar to this picture, digging out open pits while also opportunistically hunting lemurs and other wildlife. One of the main ways to combat this is by maintaining permanent presence in the forest. So ASSR already had a basic research and ecotourism camp called Camp Indri by the time we started work here. And we've sort of taken that over, but plan to fully expand this to build a large field station nearby over the next couple of years. There are habituated lemur groups living right around camp, so it's an ideal site for building a field station and improving upon the existing infrastructure for adventurous visitors wishing to experience this remote site. This is a shot from above the field station. So at this site, we monitor the larger bodied lemurs, such as indri, silky sifak, and the white-fronted brown lemurs on a daily basis, collecting behavioral, feeding, and ranging ecology data on these species. These monitoring data allow us to evaluate seasonal fluctuations in their diet and gauge their overall health. As part of our monitoring, we tag all the feeding trees they use, collecting seeds directly from those trees, as well as collecting any whole seeds that they defecate. We also monitor northern bamboo lemurs, and over the last 2 years, we've been working with a Ph.D. student from UC Berkeley to evaluate the ecological niches of vanga, which is a group of several endemic bird species, and basically looking at how climate change may be affecting their distribution along a steep elevational gradient within ASSR. But back to the lemur feeding ecology, those data help to inform our reforestation efforts, with all the seeds cleaned and then taken to our nursery where we care for them until they are ready to plant in strategic areas for building buffer zones and establishing corridors. To address illegal activities like mining, logging, and hunting, we work closely with Madagascar National Parks to conduct joint patrols throughout the reserve. These missions were supported through a Nat Hab Philanthropy grant and involve large teams traveling deep into remote forest areas to monitor threats and support law enforcement. Over the past 2 years, these efforts have helped reduce illegal activities in the park by approximately 50%. But enforcement alone isn't enough. Many people involved in illegal activities around protected areas aren't doing so because they want to. They often feel they have no other way to provide for their families. Before launching programs in the region, our socioeconomic surveys showed that many nearby villages were experiencing severe food insecurity. In response, our team launched the Secondary program, which trains households to farm a native edible insect that is highly nutritious and easy to raise. Secondary reproduce quickly, they're simple to harvest, simple to cook, and provide an excellent source of protein and iron. Communities, yeah, they're sometimes skeptical at first, but once they try them and they discover that they taste a bit like bacon, adoption spreads really quickly, possibly because of the bacon taste. So far, we've received around 100% community participation and seen secondary farming spread spontaneously throughout the region. Next, we have the La Mananara site within the Central Highlands. This forest is part of a private landholding that is within the Anjasora Bay Angavu protected area. This site is mid to high elevation, so it stays a bit cooler here during the warm summer months. Given its close proximity to Madagascar's capital, Antananarivo, La Mananara has become our main research training site. Like other areas of Madagascar, the region is under immense pressure. Burning land as part of shifting agriculture practices can quickly get out of control. Similar to ASSR, maintaining a permanent presence in the landscape, working with communities, and monitoring these forests can help to mitigate the pressures. Here we have our base of operations at La Mananara. Conditions here are a bit more comfortable than our remote ASSR field camp. We recently renovated and expanded an existing building to serve as our dedicated research station, and it continues to be upgraded to support our ongoing work. This is also our main site for hosting international students, and so far we've hosted several grad students from Sapienza University of Rome, undergrads from Columbia University, Barnard College, Utrecht University. They've carried out some excellent research, which is focused on lemurs, chameleons, native carnivores like Fusa and Falanuk, and even botanical studies to help understand forest recovery after wildfires. We regularly monitor the diadem sifak, the species on the right there, which is an entertaining primate to watch leap through the canopy. We also monitor indri at La Mananara, and through a Ph.D. student at Ohio State University, we are evaluating their health as part of a comparison with a tourism site further east. Thankfully, we have a healthy population in La Mananara, and it's just magical to hear their loud calls in the morning. And our monitoring work extends to the smallest primates. Here we have a very cute mouse lemur who is having its measurements taken. This is part of a long-term recapture study with the University of California, Berkeley, in which we are evaluating their role as seed dispersers throughout the various forest habitats in the larger landscape. We also host large student groups from local universities and provide training and capacity building experiences. Recently, we hosted 12 Malagasy students from the University of Antsira Bay, with many of them helping us to establish botanical plots, phenology trails, and herbarium collections. There's even been several new species of orchid that were discovered, and we're in the process of formally describing. Our restoration work is also expanding rapidly here. Seeds collected during wildlife monitoring are raised in our local nursery and later planted to restore degraded forest areas. Just last week, together with the local community, including many children, we planted 10,000 trees in a single day. Education is another major focus of our work. We visit local schools every week, running environmental education programs through games, forest visits, and hands-on activities. We are just starting a school library now. Most of these kids have never had a book of their own to take home, and they certainly don't own any. So we're really excited about this program and actually teaching kids how to read, which is also a huge problem in Madagascar. The students at one local school even asked us to start a community garden And so we started that last year, and they've been learning how to compost and grow foods that can help supplement their family's diets. And this year, we're kicking off a volunteer program at our La Mananara site with a UK-based company called The Great Projects. I believe those itineraries are around 10 to 14 days, and we'll be operating from May through October. And volunteers can come and stay at La Mananara. We are in the process of finishing up some bungalows where they'll be staying, and they can participate in all of the projects and initiatives that we have going on at the site. But it is a kind of a formal itinerary, and so you would be spending certain days working with the field teams, and then seed collection and changing out camera traps, and working in the school. So just participating in all the things that we have going on. So next, we have the Mandjari Angavu landscape in the far south. This is our newest site, which covers a massive area and holds some of the last spiny forest habitat remaining. It's really a surreal landscape of baobabs and octopus trees, plants that are found nowhere else on the planet. It's very unique. And so it's disappearing fast because of land conversion. The population is quickly increasing in the region. And unfortunately, many of those spiny forest plant species take a very long time to grow. And so when people have their needs for building homes and for heating those homes and for cooking food, these plants can disappear very quickly. At this site, we're collaborating with Turtle Survival Alliance and the Madagascar Classic Collection's high-end eco lodge, Mandjari River Camp. So the Mandjari River Camp is actually on several of Nat Hab's Madagascar itineraries. And so this is a site where you can see Wildlife Madagascar's operations up close and personal. The idea behind our partnership with the Mandjari River Camp is that we see ecotourism, when set up correctly like this, can lead to prosperity for the local communities and truly show the benefit of conserving their natural forests and wildlife. Unfortunately, most of the travelers that come to Madagascar end up being backpackers, and they spend very little money as they travel around to different areas of the country. And that doesn't really help in many of these areas. And so it doesn't really provide that benefit to the local communities, and they don't see the value in protecting those resources in those areas. But high-end ecotourism like this, it can make a real difference. And so we're really happy that Nat Hab has been going to and is still including this site on their itineraries. So among the species that we monitor in Mandjari and Angavu are the radiated tortoises, which is often targeted by illegal wildlife traffickers. It used to be that you could drive across the landscape and you'd have to stop pretty much every 10 feet and move the tortoises out of the road. But that's but a distant memory now. Now it takes a while to find these animals, and so because of illegal traffickers. And so we are, expanding our expertise to work with Turtle Survival Alliance and monitoring and set up programs where we can work with those local communities to truly protect these animals in an efficient manner. We also monitor some of the more charismatic species. Not that tortoises aren't charismatic, but we do focus on some of the lemurs there, such as the Verreaux's sifak, which you see on the right. You can see it sashaying there across the red sand. This is a very common scene, and you may have seen it in some documentaries because it's just such a beautiful scene to see unfold. And of course, this is the natural habitat in the south for Madagascar's most iconic lemur species, the ring-tailed lemur. These lemurs can live in large multi-male, multi-female groups, which are dominated by females. So not only are we monitoring their behavioral ecology and understanding which plants they're most reliant on, but also their dynamic social interactions, which play out a bit like a soap opera. So earlier I mentioned how slowly the plants grow in the spiny forest. Unfortunately, increasing demand for fuel wood means these fragile ecosystems are under constant pressure. And to help address this, we've begun developing alternative green charcoal made from dead biomass, primarily the waste material from sisal and other locally available exotic and invasive plants. This is our first step into this type of initiative, but we believe it has strong potential to scale, not only across our sites, but eventually across all of Madagascar, helping to reduce reliance on wood harvested from natural forests. The one thing that we're still trying to work on, though, is the ash component. As they burn, they seem to leave a lot of ash, which can put out the fire. And so we need to come up with a better binding agent for this. But soon enough, we'll figure it out and work on expanding this initiative across all of our sites. And then last, we have Singida-Namaruka National Park in northwest Madagascar. As the name suggests, this park is known for its singi, which is limestone karst. If you've traveled to Madagascar before and visited Singida-Bemara or Ankarana, or perhaps you've seen this sort of landscape featured in a nature documentary. I know there was one on Netflix a few years ago focused on national parks, and Bemara was the focus of that first episode. This landscape, this rock, it's very sharp. It's like a serrated knife, but it's truly a just incredible landscape. And thankfully, at this site, similar to Mandrari and Gavu, we partner with Madagascar Classic Collection, who operates the Namaruka Singi Camp. This is another high-end eco lodge that just opened in August of 2024, and it's all-inclusive luxury safari-style camping. They have a beautiful bar and restaurant that's built right into the Singi. One of the things that makes this partnership special is that at these sites, each guest pays a conservation fee, which then funds our conservation activities in the area, helping us to employ community members as research technicians or develop programs such as community gardens and our education initiatives and any of the other things that we're working on. Currently, the funds that they generated from last year are being used to help build our field station, kind of as our front office almost for working within the park. And so over time, our hope is that this partnership and setup can become self-sustaining, which is something that is done pretty commonly in East Africa, Southern Africa, and some other sites, maybe even in South America. But in Madagascar, this is a very foreign concept. There haven't been any ecotourism lodges that contribute directly to conservation like this. And so this is a bit of a proof of concept to see how it all works. But so far, we've been really successful in a lot of the programs we've developed, and it's been a really great partnership. So that Singi landscape, it's really incredible. You can see here in this photo, this is the Grand Singi, and it's surrounded by large baobabs, and occasionally you'll see Deccan's sifak jumping through these canyons. What you don't really see here, it's kind of tough to tell, is that, so my program manager, Jacques, is standing there, but in between he and I, there are several little canyons and narrow drops of about 30 meters deep or even more. And so you have to be very careful when walking around on this landscape. on this rock. And so eventually, this area is going to be more developed for ecotourism. And so the idea is to put in boardwalks in these areas and rope bridges so that you can really traverse and go explore even further out onto these singy, rock formations. That's something that they've done in Ankarna and Bemara, but in Namaruka, it just doesn't exist yet. And so, so we're hoping to do that within the next couple of years. So hopefully pretty soon. In the north of this protected area, there's this beautiful natural spring as well. It's very different from the dry, deciduous landscape elsewhere in the park. But this area we call the Blue Lagoon. The water is crystal clear. And you can see at least 10 meters deep in many of these areas. When we first started to explore Namaruka, this used to be like our favorite spot to go swim. It was just a perfect place, because some of those days can be around 100 degrees. But then over time, as we started to venture further down that lagoon area, we discovered that there's actually a lot of Nile crocodiles that also preferred that spot. So we no longer are swimming there, or at least, you can swim at your own risk, but we aren't swimming there anymore. Instead, we're letting the crocodiles have it for now. Perhaps most fascinating about Namaruka and its incredible beauty and the wild landscape is that this national park, even though it was, it's been protected for 60 years, it's largely unexplored. I've worked in Madagascar for 20 years, and I only heard about this park maybe about 5 years ago. And in fact, once we started working there and started telling people that we were working there, even most Malagasy, even some in the government were like, where is that? I've never heard of it. And so it's just a basically unexplored place. It's a wild landscape. And since we started working in 2024, we've been making constant discoveries, especially in this expansive cave network that exists under the Singi. This includes intact pottery and other artifacts near ancient tombs. Now, these ancient tombs, we asked the locals that live in the area if they knew of who these people were or the people that lived in that particular area of the Singi, and they have no idea. There's already a very low population density within this region. And yeah, they don't know who lived there, who left these artifacts, but it's really incredible to see some of these items that are, hundreds of years old and still perfectly preserved. We've also discovered cave art. Here we have a depiction of a zebu that appears to be being led by 7 people. Not sure what this means, but there are similar examples of cave art from other areas of Madagascar. What's interesting about this is that zebu, a form of cattle that are all throughout Madagascar, they were brought to Madagascar around 700 years ago. So we presume that these cave drawings that we've been discovering are more recent, are within the last 700 years. Now, elsewhere in the caves, we've discovered subfossil hippo tusks that are embedded in the cave walls. So pygmy hippos used to exist in Madagascar, and they went extinct thousands of years ago, though some people may argue and think that they may still be existing in some remote areas, but none have ever been discovered. But we still find their remains as subfossils in areas of caves around Namaruka, so that's been fascinating. And then we even have subfossil bones from other species, not just hippos, but extinct lemurs. And fun fact, all of the known extinct lemurs were larger than those living today, including 2 species which were approximately the size of gorillas. It's just incredible to think about what the landscape may be, what the fauna of Madagascar must have been like even just 500 years ago, with gorilla-sized lemurs, and even elephant birds, which are the largest known land bird of all time. They stood 10 feet tall. And Marco Polo even referred to them in one of his journals. He had heard stories of them and drew a picture. Nothing like what the real elephant bird looked like, but yeah, there were tales of this giant bird that existed across the world, even 500 years ago. So one of the first things our team did when we started to work in Namaruka was work on habituating several groups of lemur species living next to the camp. On the left, we have the red-brown lemur, and on the right are the critically endangered Deccan's sifak. Having those animals comfortable with being watched by people is key, not only for our ability to monitor these animals long-term, but also to create that magical experience for guests at the Eco Lodge. The other benefit to the long-term behavioral monitoring is that we will gain a better understanding of which tree species these lemurs feed on seasonally and most heavily, so we can target our reforestation efforts towards those tree species. And better yet, if these lemurs ingest and defecate whole seeds, we can collect those and use those in our nursery to help speed up the process. Another lemur we monitor around Namaruka is the Siambakibu sportive lemur. This is a critically endangered species that's only known from this site and one other place. Thankfully, the population here is quite healthy, and we're expanding our surveys so that we can more properly document their density and distribution throughout the protected area and other adjacent unprotected forests in the region. Like all of our other sites, even though I didn't put any slides about this, we have camera trapping grids that are systematically set up in areas of these protected areas where we work to monitor more cryptic species. So the ones from Namaruka, we have been capturing a lot of fossa. This is Madagascar's largest native carnivore. They're kind of like a small panther, small mountain lion, I guess. They're actually part of their own family. It's called the Euplurids, and Euplurids are specifically Malagasy carnivores, and they're most closely related to African mongooses. We've been able to document very large groups of red-brown lemurs throughout the site. We have a lot of excellent photos of Deccan's sifak on the ground. Here's one appearing to look like a Muppet. But then we also have lots of bush pigs, which are invasive, and they cause a bit of destruction throughout the forest. And while the human population around Namaruka is very small, there are still many feral carnivores, like this cat roaming the national park. This one has just caught a mouse lemur. And as you can imagine, the chances of this photo being caught, this interaction, a feral cat catching a mouse lemur and being caught on a camera trap, are so tiny that their presence is likely quite devastating on the larger native mammal populations throughout Namaruka. And the same is really true in all of the landscapes where we work, and in general, all of the landscapes throughout Madagascar. As those exotic carnivore numbers go up, so as feral cats and dog populations increase in these landscapes, we see native carnivores and some of the smaller mammal species, their populations plummet. So one of the other things I want to mention about this site is that Namaruka has the highest bat species richness in all of Madagascar, with 21 known species. We recently conducted an inventory of Namaruka with Sapienza University of Rome students, and the diversity is really awesome. We discovered a new species of Miniopterus, which is not this particular one in the photo, but we have approximately 5 different Miniopterus species that exist within Namaruka. And they, even though it's large in this photo, these species weigh between 4 to 9 grams, which is approximately the weight of about 2 to 3 pennies. At the other end of the spectrum, we have large roosts of flying foxes weighing in at 390 grams. And since they consume large quantities of fruit and can travel up to 30 kilometers each night, we're monitoring them, collecting their defecated seeds from the guano, and evaluating their germination rates compared to whole seeds collected directly from trees. And so just like collecting the whole seeds defecated by lemurs, this work is really helping to inform our reforestation strategy across the larger regional landscape. Now, because this region is incredibly arid, wildfires, similar to our other sites, it's a seasonal yet persistent problem. Locals will burn areas for new agriculture, but also to generate new pastures for grazing livestock. Currently, we are working with local communities to create a large fire break around the entire national park, as well as install several 1,000-liter water tanks around the park boundaries. And the constant need for expanding agriculture across many of the regions where we work, it's just immense, and the social challenges are immense. Nearly 60% of households in Namaruka experience food insecurity, and 3 out of 4 families report eating wild meat, some of which were, documenting or saying that they were eating lemurs as well. At the same time, 70% of children suffer from moderate to severe malnutrition, more than 35% are stunted, and over 60% of people older than 10 cannot read or write. This is similar or even slightly better than what we found in the villages and communities around ASSR. And these numbers highlight why our work cannot focus on wildlife alone. So long-term conservation in Madagascar ultimately depends on investing in people, especially children. Protecting forests and wildlife simply cannot succeed without strong partnerships with communities who live alongside them. Across all of our program sites, we work with communities to develop solutions that improve both human well-being and environmental protection. Our goal is not just to help communities survive, but to help them build resilient and prosperous futures. Futures where healthy forests, thriving wildlife, and strong local communities all support one another. Before I wrap up, I want to mention that none of this work would be possible without the many partners, organizations, and collaborators who support our efforts. And special thanks to Nat Hab for supporting our wildlife, for supporting our ASSR biodiversity monitoring patrols. Please consider becoming part of our growing community of supporters by joining as a member for as little as $25 a year. Your contribution goes directly to protecting Madagascar's unique wildlife and habitats. Wildlife Madagascar has only been operating on the ground for 2 years, and with your support, we're just getting started. You can also help us expand our reforestation program. In our first year, we planted over 40,000 saplings across 3 landscapes. Next year, our goal is to plant at least 40,000 trees in each of those landscapes, creating lasting impact for both wildlife and local communities. And of course, please follow us on social media to see updates from the field, including videos. You can sign up for our newsletter, in which we have a monthly blog. It's a monthly newsletter. We do not spam you. We do not send you anything other than that newsletter, or sell your information or anything like that. So please trust us. You can also reach me directly at the email on the screen if you want to talk more about Madagascar, Wildlife Madagascar's conservation work, or ways that you can get involved. And thank you again for your time and interest in Madagascar, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
All right, Timothy, thank you so much. So before we dive into the questions section, I would like to remind everyone that if you do have questions, you can feel free to submit them via the question field in your control panel. You should be able to access that from the upper right-hand corner of your screen. All right, so let's dive into it. Timothy, is Madagascar the only place on Earth that has lemurs?
Yes. Yeah. So lemurs evolved in Madagascar. So like I had said, Madagascar separated from other land masses around 88 million years. And then lemurs traveled to an ancestor of lemurs traveled to Madagascar approximately 60 million years ago, probably on a vegetation raft. And from that point on, with no predators, they evolved and radiated rapidly to fill all the available ecological niches, and then evolve until the present day. And so, yeah, they don't exist anywhere else. There are, there are 2 species that exist on the Comoros, but they were transported there by early sailors, probably about in the 1400s. So yeah, only on Madagascar.
Really interesting. Are there any problems with like wildlife trafficking or people moving them around?
Yeah, unfortunately, there is an illegal pet trade issue with lemurs. As people start to learn more about lemurs and see that there's so many different species, there has unfortunately that's created a market for them. And so, yeah, there are lemurs that find their way to Southeast Asia, the Middle East, and even to the US. Lemurs are not pets. They're wild animals. I would never recommend having a primate as a pet. These are social animals that really need their social group. Even the solitary ones, you think of like sportive lemurs or mouse lemurs that, you see them foraging solitarily, and most of what we know about them is their solitary habits. But when they go to bed at night, or well, during the day, because they're nocturnal, they're going into nest holes with other mouse lemurs or other sportive lemurs. And so they're very social, and they need that. So yeah, it's sad to see the pet trade target a lot of these species, but hopefully with more knowledge, more information out there about how they are not pets, how they do not make good pets, hopefully we can stop it.
Great, thank you for addressing that. One of our guests is asking about rainbow guava. I guess it's an invasive plant that lemurs have become dependent on. Is that an issue?
It's not really an issue. So there are, so strawberry guava from Brazil is found pretty much all throughout eastern Madagascar. A lot of lemurs will feed on it, and they will spread those seeds. They are excellent seed dispersers of guava. We don't really know what the health effects on the lemurs are from eating the guava, but it's a seasonal resource that is available throughout a lot of forests in eastern Madagascar. And so lemurs eat it and they're spreading it. So it's tough. It's tough to really control. But again, we don't really know it's not necessarily invasive. It seems to be just exotic. It's not, out competing other native plants. And we don't know what if there's any negative health effects from it. We haven't seen any evidence to that yet.
So is there any effort to try to eliminate invasive predators?
Invasive predators, sure. There are several organizations that work on spay and neuter campaigns for capturing feral dogs and cats, and also going to rural villages with these spay and neuter campaigns. A lot of villagers are not really wanting that, but some may allow for it. And even just being able to spay and neuter a few individual animals here and there is really helping in these remote areas, because those village dogs and cats, they're getting into the forest, and they're really out competing those native carnivores. But there aren't any other strategies that I've seen so far for eliminating that pressure other than the spay and neuter campaigns.
Gotcha. So you talked about the population explosion. How can they prevent the forests? How can you from being destroyed if they can't really control the population explosion? Is there any sort of strategy to that?
Well, I think most of those people are from the population. You know, it's these rural areas, and it's the need for resources, and so we need to look at large-scale efforts such as green charcoal, or even the government subsidizing natural gas. Even in Antananarivo, the capital city, the largest city in Madagascar, which is around 5-6 million people, most people are dependent on charcoal there, which is crazy. They should be using natural gas, and the government should be helping. So, you know, if we have more efforts like that, and if there's more, you know, even mechanized agriculture and enhancing agriculture for greater harvests, then I think we can start to decrease the reliance on those local populations having to access the remaining natural forests. It's, you know, it's kind of crazy, but in some of those rural areas, the people are using seed stock that were originally provided to them, you know, decades ago, and they're not exactly the best varietal for maybe that ecoregion. And so they're planting crops that fail under high humidity, or maybe that can't withstand drought in the south, and then their crops fail, and then they have to access the forest. And so if we set those local communities up with the appropriate seed stock of cultivars that are specific to that region and those climates, then we can help prevent crop failure and increase harvest yields so that families don't feel so stressed during certain times of the year.
Gotcha. Let's talk about the Madagascar flying fox for a second. Are they related to the Australian flying fox?
Yeah, so as far as I know, same genus. They're all Pteropus. The Madagascar one is Pteropus rufus. They are, you know, flying foxes are found throughout the Indian Ocean islands. And I think the Madagascar one's a little bit smaller than most of the others. But yeah, with flying 30 kilometers a night to go forage, they are some great seed dispersers. And so, you know, for our reforestation work, we really want to put them to work, having them spread these seeds across the landscape. And so if we're able to grow those trees in our nursery and make sure that we're planting those in our corridors and buffer zones, that's helping to provide more food items for those flying foxes, and they can continue to spread them across the landscape.
Gotcha. What about feral bush pigs? Are they having an impact on the botanical diversity or water quality, and do the local population make use of them?
I don't think they're really having any negative effects on botanical diversity. You know, they root around in the dirt. They create holes here and there. It's more of just an annoyance, I think, for the lemurs and for the native carnivores. But they're not really, you know, decimating any plants. The local communities, they do occasionally hunt them, and they will feed on them, but it's a lot of effort to set up those snares and then to go check those snares daily. And so maybe in each community, you know, collection of communities, maybe one person is actively hunting bush pigs, but it's not something they put a lot of effort into. There are in the north, there are people that will go organize hunting parties for them. But I don't think it really does much to control the population. And I'm not sure really how that population can be controlled. We're not even sure when they originally arrived in Madagascar. They are exotic. They probably arrived sometime in the last 1,000 years.
Are there any international health organizations working on the food insecurity problem?
Yeah, there are several. Well, up until last year, USAID played a huge role in food security, especially in Western and Southern Madagascar. Without USAID now, a lot of other organizations like Catholic Relief Services, several others are basically trying to take up and meet that funding gap and bring in other foods to help supplement those communities. It's a struggle though. It's definitely a struggle, and we need more. We need more organizations to be involved. We need more food available and coming into the area. I mean, Madagascar is the 4th poorest country on Earth by poverty metrics, and so meeting the food demands is one of the most important things and one of the highest, most critical issues in Madagascar.
So if people want to get involved with Wildlife Madagascar, do you have volunteer opportunities? How do you suggest that they do that?
Sure. Yeah, you can volunteer directly with us. You can contact me about volunteering at one of our sites. We also have that partnership with the Great Projects that runs organized volunteering opportunities at our La Mananara site. That's only from May through October, but the rest of the year we take on volunteers independently directly through our organization. You can become a member and support us. I have the QR code on the screen still. You can support our Plant a Tree initiatives, help support our reforestation efforts. Or you can just donate as well to help support our efforts and expand our programs. Like I said, we're only 2 years old. We originally started this. I left San Diego Zoo in late 2022, joined Wildlife Madagascar 2023. We did right at the beginning, and then we expanded. We did site evaluations over that first year and some socioeconomic assessments, and then keyed in on neglected landscapes, people where or places where there were incredible forests, incredible habitat and wildlife that were completely being ignored, communities that were being ignored, and we wanted to highlight those. And so that's where we decided to focus, and we started those efforts then in 2024. And so 2 years in, and we're rolling, and we'd love to have more support to help us continue to expand.
Great. Well, thank you for addressing all of these questions. Unfortunately, that was going to be the last one that we do have time for today. So I'd like to throw it back to you for any closing comments you may have.
Yeah, just thank you for the opportunity to chat with Nat Hab, and to thank you all for joining and listening to me talk about Madagascar and learn more about Wildlife Madagascar's operations and our work in Madagascar. So please join us as a member, help support our work, help us continue to expand. And we'd love to see you in Madagascar, either on one of Nat Hab's trips that visit Mandrari River Camp or Namarukasingi Camp, or even directly with us. You can always reach out, and we'd love to have you. Thank you.
Timothy, thank you so much for taking the time to present for us today. And I'd also like to thank everyone who joined us today. So if you would like to visit Madagascar, please contact us at 800-543-8917, or you can send us an email at info@nathab.com. Our adventure specialist will be happy to help you out. Join us tomorrow for our next Daily Dose of Nature. You can check out this week's lineup, including registration links, on our website at nathab.com/webinars. We did record today's presentation, and we will have the replay available on the website soon. With that, I will conclude today's webinar. So long, everybody. We'll see you next time.